Hello guys, welcome back to my channel, and in this video we're going to look at the Zero Dupes tier list. This is something a lot of you requested, so I decided to finally make it. The tiers are different from the usual tier list, so we have no irregular, high ranker, etc. Because if I use the same ratings and then I put maybe a unit in irregular that is not irregular in the, let's say, standard tier list, then people might say why that is the case, might complain, I don't know. So to avoid all types of misunderstandings, I went with a different rating system. So we have excellent performance at the top. These are units that really work extremely well at Zero Dupes, provide a ton of value, and you can super easily use them in a variety of teams. And then as we go lower, we will have units that are more and more niche, that maybe require some specific setups, or that are just good for one specific scenario. And at the very bottom, we have units that it's better if you don't even try to use them because they're completely useless. So yeah, that's the idea for the tier list. Keep in mind, I only ranked SSR plus units and above, so I should probably remove some filters here. They don't really matter for these three, but fine, still okay. So yeah, I only rank those because SSR, SR, and R units make no sense to judge them at Zero Dupes. Is completely irrelevant. Even though some of them are good, like Anna, for example, and Dorsey, or other units, it doesn't really matter. Those are units you're going to get dupes for eventually, so it's not as important as this one, I would say. So yeah, guys, we can get started with the first tier. If you're curious maybe to have a more generic description of each tier, you can click on the info icon next to the title, but I kind of explained briefly what the logic is, so let's focus on the units within each tier. For excellent performance, I have Ray, because this guy at Zero Dupes can already remove every single attack increase buff and shield on enemies, and deal max HP damage on top of it. Super, super useful. He will struggle a bit with survivability. Mostly his summon will, but you already have to protect him anyway, even if he was maxed out. The damage, sure, is a bit lower at Zero Dupes compared to Red 1, but it's nothing major. This guy has kind of garbage Revolution, except for Revolution 7, that gives him the untargetability I mentioned. So I'd say Chomray is almost as good as Zero Dupes as he is as Rainbow 5. Obviously, it is an exaggeration, but it's still a very solid unit. Then we have Cha, both as a damage dealer, I would say up to 250, 300, 350 deficit. It can be a DPS even at Zero Dupes. If you give him Sundance, even more than that, but then the requirements for team building will increase quite a bit. Still, he really provides a ton. He also has energy decrease, and a lot of it. So the value that he brings, even at Zero Dupes, is absolutely excellent. So I really, really like to use Cha. Then we have Evan. He's also a super strong unit at Zero Dupes. When he gets to Rainbow 5, he's better only because of the extra energy. Basically, he's going to cast the first special move a bit earlier, but that's about it. With the right team building, you can get around that point super easily, and it will just chain special move after special move, and your team will be unkillable. Might be tricky to use in the early stages if you are on a new account, but with the right adjustments, you can definitely make use of this guy, and even at Zero Dupes, it is great. So super, super strong unit. Then we have Irang. She's also similar. Maybe I could have placed them in very usable, to be honest, instead of excellent performance. She is a grouping machine. Even at Zero Dupes, she's going to provide some very decent grouping. The annoying thing is that it comes a bit late, so you cannot really group enemies super early and also use her as a form of protection. This is going to be mainly grouping enemies so that your, I don't know, supports or carries that have AoE attacks or AoE crowd controls or whatever can hit all the enemies. That's her main use, and it's really, really excellent. Then we have another support, SSR plus Yura. She has a very similar kit to Evan. Unfortunately, she does not protect herself, so you might need to use some other units with her when she's Zero Dupes. But still, she provides a lot of survivability for your team, With the right setups, she could also stay alive reliably. Great support, great value. Really, I think she deserves the excellent performance, no doubt. Then for the last one, we have Rashut. She's great at zero dupes. She has decent survivability if you're running L, because she's going to use a lot of basic attacks at that point. Her special moves makes her untargetable, so that's okay survivability, not insane, but it's a nice addition. And the link that she has to one enemy is going to apply an unremovable HP recovery block that is really so good. We cannot, like, it's so good. If you have it, you're going to use it. She can also deal damage as a DPS if you are around 300 deficit, maybe even 350. Zero dupes or shoot will deal an absurd amount of damage, so that's really solid as well. Then we have the very usable categories. Some of them might even deserve to go up, some of them might deserve to go down, depending on which kind of teams you're trying to run, but they are very solid options. We have Sharon, which at zero dupes can still protect your carry for a long time, but she will have an 8-second downtime instead of a 3-second downtime when she is Rainbow 5. So for that reason, I still say she's massive to have. She's great to protect your like DPS from early assassinations in very beginning of the game, but you will have to keep in mind you have a massive downtime to cover. So that's the only issue. That's why she's not above. She's not in excellent performance just because of that massive downtime. But everything else is pretty good. Well, I would also say that she's not there because she needs to get to the first special move to be almost unkillable, and it's kind of hard to do with zero dupes, but you can run Barry, so that's kind of fixed. Then we have Beta, great stall tank that not only can survive for the very least 10 seconds, but he also has a barrier break. So really good value. I really like him. He also jumps in into the enemy team at the very start of the battle, so he could also do some grouping if enemies allow. If enemies have assassins that dash or other units, then that won't happen. But it's a good unit. Maybe we could even argue excellent performance, to be honest, because it's definitely the best stall tank we have. Data Machine can potentially live longer, but she does not really group anybody. She does not provide any utility. Like, she has no barrier break, she has no nothing. So I don't know. She doesn't definitely belong in excellent performance, but for beta, we could make an argument for that. So for Data Machine, already mentioned, she basically functions the same. She's going to be a tank that will survive at the very least, I think 12 seconds, more or less, give or take. And whenever she uses a skill, that duration is going to extend by 1 second. So I'd say decent value at zero dupes, absolutely a great stall tank. Everybody used her when she was there, like when they had her zero dupes. So the only reason why she's not higher is because literally she does not provide anything else. She was built as sort of a damage unit that can stay alive. We're using her as a tank, so she doesn't really bring a lot to the table, but it's fine. Still amazing unit. Then we have the new addition, Robodon. Now this guy, he might be a bit tricky to use at zero dupes because he needs to get to the special move or he absolutely explodes. For that, we can use Barry, that's really good, or you can use teammates, kind of up to you. But if you get to the first special move, then he has 8 seconds when he's unkillable, and you will then have to hope he can chain the next one, or you will have to protect him a bit so that he can use yet another special move. But he basically has around 10 seconds guaranteed survivability because the 2 second from Barry plus the 8 second from the special move is around 10, a bit less than that, but it's quite decent. And then if you play it well, you will have an even longer survivability. He also protects the close range units that are close to him, and he protects all green element allies with sort of a barrier effect. So all of that together is extremely valuable. This guy might even go in excellent performance in specific teams, but since those are specific teams, I decided to leave him in very usable, but he's super solid at zero dupes. Then we have Yastracha. He is helpful when you're facing some annoying enemies that can maybe wipe your team or that you don't want them to cast a special move, for example, you can use Yasracha so that they are charmed. They are going to come into your team and potentially you can stop them somehow with some crowd control, some damage, or whatever. So it's good to pick enemies and potentially counter them. For that use, it might have been okay as a tech unit, to be honest, or as a niche unit, but because of like how valuable those counters are, I still decided to put him in very usable. So if you're facing a tank hats, for example, he's a great counter for that. If you're facing an Asensio, great counter as well. You're facing a Garam, you can also use him a bit to try and increase your chances of killing those units. For that reason, he isn't very usable. But if you told me, no, I think he deserves niche or tech, you would be right, I'd say. Similar thing could apply to both Zahard. I gave them very usable because they are stall tanks and they can also break shields, but they last less than Beta and Datamashini. They break shields a bit better than Beta, maybe, but not that much. So in general, I don't know. They could go lower, to be totally honest. They could also go to niche or tech. I just wanted to highlight the fact that these guys, if you have them, you might want to use them to buy some time. So I decided to still leave them in very usable. They could go lower, they could be a bit situational, kind of up to every single player, but they're definitely good. Every unit that you see here that is not in Unplayable could have some use. Maybe some of the tech ones are a bit too, like a bit too niche. Those are really niche. So maybe from okay, maybe also the niche ones now. So from usable and above, those are units that you can basically use wherever you want. They will have a lot of use cases. From niche and below, if you have them, you probably won't use them at zero dupes, but you could. And this guy, I should probably increase because it would be usable if you have him, not excessively. Whatever, we're going to get there eventually. But yeah, just know from usable and above, you will find some use cases for those units. Then we have Gustang and Urek. Both of them are good DPSs. They will need a bit more protection when they are zero dupes compared to when they are maxed out. In the case of Gustang, it will need a lot of energy when he's at zero dupes. In the case of Urek, just a bit of extra protection and maybe damage boost because it does not have access to max HP damage when he's not when he's not Rainbow 5. So for Gustang, he wants energy and protection. For Urek, he wants some defense decrease, some damage buffs. He's great, he's a great DPS, but I still couldn't put him any higher because of how needy he is. I didn't feel like putting him in very usable or anything. You can use them, that's why they're usable, but you might have better options at that point. Then we have Augustus, great debuffer, but the percentages are a bit low at zero dupes. And the damage is acceptable at times, but nothing super great. So you can use him as a DPS, you can use him as a debuffer. He has okay survivability. He's decent, but again, nothing insane. If you have him and you don't have any better alternatives, you can give him a shot, and it might be a decent DPS option for you, but it's not really too frequently used at low copies. Then we have Evelyn. She's a bit lower than the other stall tanks because her survivability is a bit worse. You will need Barry so that she gets to cast the active skill, and then she will survive for like 5 additional seconds. That's good, but then she basically dies. She has nothing else. So you will need to keep her alive. If you do, she will have an AoE swiftness decrease that is pretty massive. So that's great. But I mean, it's annoying to keep alive. So she's just usable. She would be higher if her survivability was better. You need a lot of like team building stuff to keep her going for the whole fight. That's the main downside. Then we have Rachel. Some people asked to place her higher, to be honest, when I was discussing this in Discord. But the reason why I only placed her in usable is because she needs Icarus Rainbow 5 when she's zero dupes. If you don't have Icarus Rainbow 5, you can get away with Rainbow 5 Eura, like SSR Plus Eura, but as you can tell, that's even less likely. And if you don't have that, you can get away with Rainbow 5 Kun, but even that, again, SSR Plus maxed out, kind of an harsh requirement. So for that reason, Zero Dupes Rachel without those is a bit too weak. So I decided to lower her rank. She can still do fine if your deficit isn't crazy, it's like 250, 300. Sure, she will do fine. She will be better than white, even at zero dupes. But keep in mind, she won't really perform that great. If you have those teammates, though, her damage is absolutely insane even at zero dupes. So she would jump up to excellent performance. Really a great DPS with those supports. Then we have Albelda. Zero dupes is okay, but again, it's just a slight attack and defense buff and a bit of invincibility when she uses a special move, which won't happen that frequently. Her own survivability is okay because she's always targetable, but she doesn't provide enough. Like without the Revolution 5 or even Revolution 4 that gives the initial hit barrier, that would be helpful in some scenarios. But the Revolution 5 is what you're going to use Albilda for in most scenarios, which is the minus 20-second to active skills whenever Albilda uses this special move. That's really good. That's an important part of her kit. So without that, she feels lacking, but you can use her. It's a nice buff for your attack scaling DPS unit or defense scaling. Then we have Alphine. Alphine is also not too exceptional. She wants Revolution so that she starts with the Fox at the very beginning of the battle, and she also conceals everybody. Without that, it's a bit annoying. She's only going to conceal herself and the highest attack unit, and then you will have to hope she gets to cast the Fox. And after that, she will be a bit slow. I don't know. It's okay. It's decent value. That's why she's unusable, but is not too frequently used at zero dupes. Then we have some niche units, like we have Kuneden. He can work as a DPS at zero dupes. Not too comfortable to use, but in some scenarios when you have enemies that have a lot of defense, it might be a good option because it's just going to straight up ignore defense. Then we have Helljo, also a good DPS at zero dupes, but not that great. Definitely worse than Rachel, but he has HP recovery block, so it could also be used as a HP recovery block unit in some scenarios. Definitely acceptable, but nothing insane. Then we have Karaka. Karaka is not higher because he doesn't have a guaranteed period of time that he's going to stay alive. He has one revive, and then he has to rely entirely on the team. If your deficit is relatively low, so below 250, let's say, you can run full resistances on him and he will survive decently. But, I mean, keeping him alive is a bit too annoying. Can be used at times, depending on the team, but not too frequently. Then we have Kun Mashini. Zero dupes is mostly here because of Sundance. She has AoE basic attacks when she uses the Trident, and that with Sundance is really strong. You would want to have more investments that you get attack speed subnode, you get the Revolution that will protect her a bit better, and also reduce the cooldown of the Trident. But zero dupes, if you're really struggling, you have no DPS whatsoever, she's your only option, she could work. So why not? Then we have Awakened Rock, also a tank. He has an hit barrier, let's call it that, the first time he goes below a certain HP threshold. But that one can be broken super quickly. It might not even last 3 seconds. For that reason, I couldn't rank him any higher. He's still okay. He can work if you run resistances and your deficit is not too high, similar to Karaka. He can do some stuff, but don't expect too much from him. I wouldn't really bother. If you need some frontline units quickly, you can deploy him, but it won't bring much value to the team. Then we have Elite Spy Xia Xia. She really shines with Revolution, but even at zero dupes, her own survivability is acceptable. You can provide some defense decrease for the team, some good heals that are not useful basically in any scenario, except if you have some units with damage taken cap. For example, Urek, for example, Evelyn, for example, Reflejo, etc. So those units can actually use heals. Most of the other ones cannot. So it will depend, but she could be used. A bit niche, but can be used. Then we have a Revolution Bomb. I mentioned before, maybe we could increase his ranking. He's going to have a defense decrease. He has decent base durability and also good crowd control with the AoE knockup. So I think he might deserve a bit more. But realistically, you're only going to use him together with Ulrich. So I don't really see a reason why I should increase that. But that's fine. That's all. Now let's move to the next tier, which is the tech units. We have Yugo, that is also sort of a stall tank, but she doesn't really draw a lot of aggro at the beginning. Her damage won't be that high, but she has a buff removal. So if you need a buff removal and a unit that can tank a few hits, then Yugo will work even at 0 dupes, but she will die fairly quickly. And yeah, that's it. Like, she won't deal a ton of damage, she will die quickly. Not the best, but can be used. Then we have Towa that does very little without Revolution, without the 4-second invincibility on the Revolution. She is lacking quite a lot, but she provides a swiftness increase. Not as good as when she's 3 red, but still it's a decent amount. You might need it, might come in handy, not that often. So if you have a low dupes Towa, probably you won't use her. I would say that. Then we have Kun, also similar scenario. He just has some heals. Not many people care about that. Some defense decrease, some attack increase, defense increase. Fine, but it's nothing exceptional. His own ability is okay because he has 2 revives in his passive. That's about it. Literally not to use. If you need the heals, yes. If you need a bit more attack and defense, why not? But yeah, not that important. Then we have Ejin. He's mostly here because of the initial energy decrease that he has. And in general, he might survive a bit with the increase in evasion, but I wouldn't rely on that much. So I would just consider a quick unit to have and draw some aggro and increase the energy of one target. That's it. We also have Escanor for the AoE Ryanna, mostly, and he won't do anything else. That's it. Then we have Garam. She's okay. She has energy increase for your teammates, like energy regen. She can decrease resistances on enemies. She can increase special move Pierce on your allies. She can also stun enemies. She can remove one enemy from the fight. She can do a lot of stuff, but her percentages are a bit too low. She doesn't provide a massive ability boost. So for all of that, she can be used as a tech unit in some scenarios when you need what she provides, but you won't use her frequently if she's not maxed out. Then we have Kaiser, similar situation to Machini, but I would consider her a bit worse. Also, durability is complete garbage. If you give her Ascendance, she can deal good amount of damage even at 0 dupes, but annoying to use, I'd say. Then we have Princess of the Heart. She will deal no damage and her ability will be quite lacking at 0 dupes. She's mostly here because of the active skill cooldown increase that she has in the Exotic. So if you can keep her alive with the team, she can at least do something and make the fight easier for the rest of your team. That's the only use case why she's here. Then we have Hiwa. She's pretty garbage at 0 dupes. She does not provide any ability except for an heal, but she has an AoE knockback with energy decrease. That's still really good. So for that reason alone, she is here as a tank unit. If you need a quick energy decrease, you can use her, but that's it. Then we have Kunadan. Similar reason to like Data Kunadan, but the reason why is one tier lower is that these percentages are even lower than Data Kunadan. So instead of 30% max HP, he has 25. And then the passive is even worse, is like 612. Whatever, like, it's not that great. It's a worse option compared to Data Kunadan, so I wouldn't bother using him. Chances are you already have the other one, so use that. Then we have Princess of the Heart Garam. Similar scenario, so she's slightly worse than SSR plus Garam, mainly because they reduce the duration of the stun, they reduce the amount of all the different debuffs that she provides, so she's just a worse SSR plus Garam. I wouldn't use her if you have access to the other one. Same thing with Kaiser, but in this case it's a bit less relevant because we only care about sentence damage, so it doesn't matter if her percentages are a bit lower. And then for all the unplayable ones, there is really not much to mention. Maybe Arya I could increase to tech unit, to be honest. Let me know in the comments. She also has a cooldown increase in her kit, similar to Princess, and she has a 3-second invisibility in her passive. So maybe as a tech unit, not that big of a fan of her. She won't deal a ton of damage, so I wouldn't really bother. But let me know if you think I should increase her in tech, because that could be reasonable. Everyone else doesn't make really a lot of sense. Potentially Alice, but her max HP damage is very low without Revolution, so not a fan of that either. But fine, that's kind of the tier list, guys. Let me know in the comments if you would change anything, if you have any objections. As I said, this is mostly, like, this is not 100% accurate, it cannot be. But I'd say that anyone from usable and above can definitely be used in a lot of occasions, and the other ones are not as important, I'd say. So yeah, thanks so much guys for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye.